This episode of the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast is brought to you by Groundhog Day is an event, not a business strategy. Are you ready to finally solve those pesky issues that keep holding back your business success and never seem to go away? Embrace the power of the S.P.R.I.N.G formula that unearths the issues and opportunities burrowed beneath the surface, and grow your business so you thrive from your intersection of your brilliance and your passion. Claim your copy today at www.thegroundhogbook.com. Welcome to the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast. Join us as we celebrate entrepreneurs, business creators, and brilliant minds who reveal what they are doing to make the world a better place by being part of it. Be sure to visit our website at www.brilliancepluspassion.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now sit back, lean in, tune in, get your notepad and 2 pens ready, and let's get started.
Hi, my name is Adam Homey. I am your host, and I am honored by your wise decision to tune in and invest in yourself today. Right now, we are speaking with Mike Gorday, who is a human solutions consultant. Let me tell you about him. He's originally from Arizona, but he moved to Washington State many years ago. With a master's or an MA degree, he's a human solutions consultant living in the Seattle, Washington area. He combines his continuing education in human behavior, over 20 plus year career experience in the helping field, and over 20 years studying martial arts in assisting others navigating the often rocky road of obtaining goals and changing their lives. This one is going to be a treat. Mike Gorday, welcome aboard.
Hi, Adam. How are you today?
Could be better. It's actually evening. You and I, we're both night owls. We're both in the Pacific time zone. And, when I first started the Brilliance Plus Passion Project, I knew we were going to get a lot of people we're going to be connecting with right away. In fact, this is my mission to unite with others and joining together to serving our mutual communities, markets, and audiences. I opened up some evening hours just so that maybe a few people would creep up there, and I could do this a couple nights a week, and then I could still have more work time during the day. But oh my goodness, you folks just lined up for those evening sessions, which actually is not bad because I'm a night owl.
Yes. I do most of my most productive work between the hours of 11 and 2 in the morning.
That's funny. My range is 10 to 1.
Yeah, that's not unusual.
Yeah, whenever, like for my private clients or my Reach VIPs, they know that when the day has come, when some big deliverable or some big step is going to happen, it'll happen that day, but the word day is loosely defined. Don't wait up.
Yeah, especially in these days.
It'll be there, but don't wait up.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so first question, how does the work you do make the world a better place for your clients, customers, and society at large?
Well, I can't say what the overarching thing about the world is, but when I work with somebody, I'm really hoping that they get the quality change that they're looking for and understand why they're changing. So then they can go out and make the impact on their lives that is much more productive and better for them. So
yeah. So overall, what is it that you actually do? And I think you told me in the green room there are a couple different facets to it. So if you could bifurcate that'd be great.
Well, what I do is I help people sort of understand psychology and neuroscience and how that affects the way they think and react and move through the world. And then we try to develop strategies on using the same psychology and things to get through. So it's a little bit more advanced than one-shot coaching, and it's not quite as in-depth as therapy. It's kind of like melding of those two disciplines together.
Yeah.
And then with organizations and stuff, a lot of the things I do for organizations is I do presentations and trainings on things like unconscious bias, de-escalation, things like that to help them understand. Again, it's all about helping them understand psychology and human behavior in order to more efficiently do things.
I'm a huge student of the art of subtlety, the subtle mind. And it's those little things. And I've had conversations on this podcast and on my Business Creators Radio show and with some of my own coaching clients about these little things that happen throughout the course of our lives. Maybe it's in our childhood. Maybe it's something that happened in college. Maybe it's something they had a job. Those things that, you're supposed to say, that happens. You just gotta move on from it. You gotta let it go. But those are the ones that tend to just sort of lay below the surface. And then one day, usually because of something unrelated, boom, boomerang hits you in the head.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that happens. Yeah, we are affected by the things that we are either taught to ignore or try to ignore because we're trying to get someplace else, and that can have an impact on our future behavior. So yes.
Yeah. Now, when I did that little affectation, the headphones halfway flying off, that was actually not intended, but I do believe it's an accurate impression of some unrelated development you have, this little repressed thing where your coping mechanism was just to make it disappear from your consciousness. And I did again.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was a good repeat.
Yes. Want to repeat? Nah, I'm kidding. I don't want to do that because I might knock him on the floor. So
3 times a charm.
maybe we'll come back to it. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
So in your experience, what are the 3 most common, frequently asked questions you get about what you do from folks who may be considering working with you?
How much does it cost? Let's see. That's a difficult question because I always do different things. So a lot of the questions surround, is there an easier way to do this? Is there an easier way? And that's that cultural thing. We live in a culture that's get one and done. Let's make it as easy as possible. And when we're dealing with psychology, it's not quite that easy. We can do simple things, but those are variations of the questions that I normally get.
Yeah. This is not something I normally do, but I'd like to make a quick interjection here. This is something that's really on my heart right now.
Okay.
And you may have seen this, especially with your work with, subtle biases, communication issues in the workplace, that you still have the folks of some of the more advanced generations. See, I still hear them complaining about millennials. You still hear millennials. Well, I am a contributing author, even though I'm a Gen Xer, just on the borderline,
right,
to a book called Journeys to Success, the Millennial Edition. I encourage people to pick it up. It's a great story about how I celebrate losing a job as my 2nd birthday. That should give you a hint of where we're going with this already.
Okay.
So you keep hearing millennials. Well, the fact is, I know a lot of millennials, and I know a lot of Gen Yers and Zers and all that, and they are not lazy. They are not really entitled. It's just a matter that they're the first generation to come into the workplace and entrepreneurship in force that knows that the gold watch and the shack in Fort Lauderdale just aren't there anymore. We've moved from get a job and stay loyal to the company, and if you move from one company to another, that's suspicious, to an era where somebody looks at your resume and they say, wait, you've been with this company for 7 years? What the hell are you doing just sitting around? It's expected that you move around. And they're not lazy. They're not demanding. What they're really asking for is the opportunity to fully serve from their intersection of their brilliance and passion. Sometimes that looks like, to hell with your stupid org chart. Sometimes that looks like, forget your stupid roles. Well, that's a disruption. It is a disruption. Each generation has a disruption. The baby boomers were a disruption from something that had come before them, and so on and so forth. So it's just natural progression. And I believe that when you understand some of the subtleties of the biases, the older generation, or the advanced generations, I like to say, looks at it and says, oh boy, I tell you, the good old days, you got a job with a company when you were 22, and as long as you didn't do something to screw up, you were a lock.
Right.
That doesn't exist anymore. And this new generation is just simply adapted to how things are now. Things are much more fluid. That's it. Everything else stems from that.
And here's the fun part. We taught them to be that way.
That is the best part, because the baby boomers were the first generation that didn't just whip their kids for sassing them.
Right. Yeah. So, we're just we are all trapped by our social constructs. So
Yes.
when we talk about age and where you are in this weird spectrum of baby boomers to millennials, these all represent different generational constructs around their socializing and education.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trapped by that. We're trapped like that, just like Freud was trapped by the overarching social structure that he existed in. Not that I'm defending him right now, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we're all kind of trapped in there. And what we see from that the millennial baby boomer or millennial Gen X or whatever, that conflict is really just change and the uncomfortableness that we have as human beings with change.
Yeah. Just one final point. I do a lot of work with clients. In fact, do the podcast Reach System is an example of it. How do you connect with people? Cold calling, to me, it still works if you understand certain things. That the vast majority of people, I have statistics on this, if you call them and it was not a scheduled or expected call, they see your number on the ID, and the phone is sitting right there, and they know it's Mike Gorday calling, they'll let it go. They will not listen to your voicemail, but check your texts or check your LinkedIn inbox or check your Facebook Messenger. About 2 minutes later, you're going to get, "Hey, Mike, saw you called. What's up?"
Yeah.
It was an adjustment for one of my clients who runs a mastermind. A few of my clients have masterminds, to discover that he has a member of his program who does not have a telephone.
Yeah.
That's where we're headed.
And this is all threatening to us.
It doesn't need to be. For some of us, it's liberating.
Oh yeah, it is. But it's a difficult thing for older folks to understand this technological revolution. And again, so it makes it harder for younger folks to understand where the older folks are coming from. And when it's just about establishing that common ground. And, as somebody who is in the older generation, it takes me a lot longer to adapt to some of these things.
Exactly. But when you do, it can be very powerful. Now, for our listeners, this one's going to run just a couple minutes over, because what happened between me and Mike is we hit an intersection of our mutual brilliance and passion that just needed to be explored. That's the beauty of podcasting, is there's no legislation that says we call it a 15-minute podcast, but it doesn't at 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
So we may be at 17, 18 by the time we're done. We still have to go through the getting to know Mike questions. So with your permission, can we sort of lightning round this?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. So next question is, what would people who know you be surprised to learn about you?
That there is a lot more to me than they see.
Okay. You want to give us a little hint?
Well, that's because I study everything that I can get my hands on, and I only relate to people on certain things. So most people won't know that I actually have a vast interest in paleontology and archaeology, and I've actually written books and things like that. So, but when I have relationships, it's usually it's usually defined by what their interests are. So they don't really know. It takes time.
I was never any good in either math or science. The two things never interested me, except for the scientific method. Something about the scientific method in and of itself fascinates me.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is I did really awesome in things like geometry and trigonometry, but I used to get stumped all the time in algebra, which I don't understand that, but that's
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do any of them, but they're different types of mathematics. So it actually does make sense. It depends on how your brain functions and how it connects to what you relate to. It's
exactly
that stuff didn't make any sense to me until I installed my system in my Camaro. Then I understood algebra and trigonometry because I needed to build a competition level sound system without blowing up the car.
There you go.
Yes.
Real world. Don't tell your math teacher that, or do tell your math teacher that. Maybe I should tell your math teacher that, because that was the excuse, right? What are the real world applications of this stuff?
Oh yeah, building systems for your cars. That's awesome. Yeah, they might laugh. So what do you hope people say about you when you're not around to hear it?
That I was kind, even if I can be a little stern about certain things, that ultimately that I was kind and helpful and good to them.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and change one thing you've done or one thing you've experienced, what would that be and why?
I would probably go back. This is the one I often go to. My go-to is I had an opportunity to go to Dartmouth when I was coming out of high school, and I chose not to do that. And I stayed in the town that I lived in and went to the local community college. And that was because I was raised in a military family, so we were moving all over the place.
Yeah.
And then when I finally settled down, I didn't want to go anywhere. So I missed an opportunity to go to an Ivy League school.
Well, I have a friend who left MIT because he wanted to be in music. It turned out he put one on the top 40. So it's, again, brilliance and passion. And it made sense to you at the time. And as somebody told me many years ago, and this was for a job interview that I had over 21, 22 years ago. I don't even remember the guy's name or what the job was all about, but I remember something he said to me. He said, look, I get resumes from people all the time, and they go on about their scholastic achievements and everything. And I'm all for college. I sent my kids to college. Whatever school you went to is the right one.
Yeah. Well, I can't argue too much about that. It is a funny transition, because I actually spent like 8 years in community college, because I would take all kinds of classes and go part-time and deke around. Right. Yeah. And then when I went and got my bachelor's degree, that took 2 years. And then my master's was 1 year degree, 1 year. So,
you start picking up the pace on the back end. That's good.
That's right.
Yeah. What famous person, alive or dead, would you like to meet? And if you had the chance, what question would you ask them?
Oh, so many. I'm going to go with, we'll keep it in the psychology realm. I would like to sit down with Alfred Adler or maybe Carl Jung.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So, I like Adler a lot. When I was in college, that was sort of my base, was Adlerian psychology.
Yep. Okay.
But Carl Jung has a lot of interesting things that he talks about too. So
without getting into it, I can understand I'm not defending Freud comment earlier, because there were certain rivalries and differences in the schools. It's very fascinating stuff. Psychology is also one of my avocations. Neuroscience, neurolinguistic programming. These are things I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've studied all of those.
Yep. What motivates and inspires you to keep going when you face a challenge?
If I'm being honest, it's just plain stubbornness.
Okay.
It's just this dirty, down and dirty, just get it, keep going, put one step in front of the other, and keep going. What inspires me, though, is when I see what I'm doing is helpful to other people. So when I can help somebody come to a realization, that's the inspiring thing that keeps me wanting to move forward. But when it gets hard, it's just keep your head down and keep going. There's a great quote that I read. It's called, when you're climbing the mountain, you can quit as many times as you want, as long as your feet keep moving.
I love that. And for people who are wondering, like, what am I doing looking around, reaching over here? My cat, my office supervisor, Princess Alessandra, keeps trying to place her paws on my keyboard. And the way it is when you have friends like cats and dogs who supervise your office, what tends to happen is they somehow know the one key to press it'll do maximum damage.
That's right.
And I want to make sure she doesn't do anything, because we only have a couple more minutes here. And and then you're going to get your gourmet food. All right. So finally, I know that, I'm going to tell your listeners how to contact you afterwards. But before we do that, just in general, tell us one action you want our listeners to take as a result of listening to this interview.
What I tell people all the time is human behavior is deceptively simple and terribly complex, and that trying to understand human behavior is something that we should all engage in. Yeah. So what the best thing to do is to learn why we're doing the things that we're doing.
Okay, so fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us today. And before you go, I just want to make sure our listeners know where to go next. You have a website. It's www.mikegorday.com. That's MIKEGORDAY.com. If you're listening to this on brilliancepluspassion.com or you're streaming it from one of our social media properties, look in the description. You should be able to see the URL there. You'll find what you need to know about the various types of consulting that Mike does. You'll see his blog, which has some interesting articles on it. You'll see how easy it is to get a hold of him to have a conversation. If something that he said piqued your interest, you'd like to explore it a little bit further with him. He's a very open, outgoing sort of guy in my experience, and I think it would be a great conversation for you. I really urge you to consider it. And he also has a podcast going on. It's been on the air. I'm no good at math. I'm just going to say 6 months, although I think it's a little bit longer. It's up and coming.
9 months, yeah.
Okay, 9 months. It's it's up and coming. I sampled a couple episodes myself. It's really worth checking out, and it gives you a chance to get a little bit more in depth with some of the brilliance and passion that Mike brings to us. So, Mike Gorday, thank you again. It's been an honor, and believe me, in education.
Thanks. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for tuning into the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast, where we celebrate entrepreneurs, business creators, and brilliant minds who are making a difference for their community, market, and audience. Remember to visit our website at www.brilliancepluspassion.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Brilliance Plus Passion podcast.